That's why I have to jump off at 2:30. Oh, and we are live. So, hi everybody. Just talking to Jill about taking my son to the dentist. But I'm Katie Harris, owner and CEO of NursePreneurs, and I'm here with.
I'm Jill Weberding, and I'm founder and CEO of NurseAssure.
Thank you guys so much for being here. And today, Jill, we are talking about Superman syndrome. Can you tell us a little bit about what this is? And
Yes. Well, we often do this even just in our regular nursing job. It's I can do it all.
I can do it all. Just keep piling it on.
Right? I don't need anybody, but the reality is you do need people. You need a team. And it doesn't change when you go into business for yourself. So, what that looks like is different for everyone. And certainly in the beginning is not what it's going to look like further down the road. But you definitely cannot do it alone. And it's this idea that I have to do it all. I have to do it all. I have to do it all. I don't have any income yet, so I have to do it all. So when for you was that, Katie, in your business, where you finally reach a threshold of, okay, seriously, tell us about your experience with that.
Like last week, maybe. No, honestly, it happened this past year. So in what year is this? 2020. So in January, I brought on my first admin because I've been doing it all, and it's exhausting, and it's kind of like burning the candles from both ends. And it got to the point where I stopped responding to emails. I stopped responding to social media. I was just so really was getting burnt out. Yeah, overwhelmed that I just couldn't do it. Like if somebody asked me, I want to purchase a course, I'd be like, no, don't bother. It was just like,
let's leave that money on the table. What are we doing here? Wait a minute.
Because it meant that I would have to do something, right? And I just couldn't do something. And it got to the point where I'm like, this is just dumb. Like I need some serious help. And so I hired my first admin, and it was tough hiring the admin because you actually have to train the admin, right? So then I kept thinking, oh God, this girl doesn't know what she's doing. I gotta just have to do everything myself, and I gotta train her. And but it was definitely the wrong mentality to take. And I had to do a little bit of research on, I had to do some research for myself, just how I teach and how I'm relating or, talking to people, because so much about your business, and that other person coming in doesn't know anything about your business, but you have to give them the chance to learn. So there's definitely an investment. So it's I had to put more time that I didn't have into training her, but she took so much off my plate. It was ridiculous. And then it's just kind of like, well, why wouldn't I have done this before?
Yeah. I mean, and like you said, when you have to think about that training aspect, because you really do have, it's the curse of knowledge. You are so deep into it. You have literally brought this, from scratch, from nothing. And you start talking about it like they are where you are, or maybe a little bit behind, and they just look at you like you have three heads, or they nod, and then you don't get what you want. They can't execute because you weren't clear in your communication. So communication is huge, huge, huge. Always when you're, bringing a team on to help you, no matter what role that is.
Right. And it's something that I tell students now, and, whether they do it or not, I'm saying from experience, I was doing all these things myself. And then when it came time to transfer these things to another person, I had absolutely nothing built out. So then I have to go back and teach them. Whereas if I had taken the time to organize, okay, when I do an email, this is the format of the email. This is how you get into Active Campaign. This is how you do all these things. All that, I would have had a library where I could have just said, hey, we'll go watch all these videos because I made them already, or I've made these processes, and literally it has to be step one, for my podcast, I'll say step one, log into WordPress using this domain. Here's the user and password, and go to the left-hand corner. It's very specific. So, having that stuff built out is amazing. And it's something now, with our design business that we have, I'm fortunate now to have a manager who's doing these processes for me, but, I had to do them, they have to get done.
Yeah. So it's much more helpful to build it as you go. Think about
Hmm.
it as so like when you start a business, you have to recognize it's not just you. Like you don't have, one job. You as a single person, or the sole entity of your business has about 15 jobs that you're doing. And so instead of thinking, well, I'm doing everything, you need to really get specific about what each of those jobs are. And then you can, like what Katie's talking about, you kind of differentiate them of, okay, this is the social media manager part where I need to post X number times a week. And, here's the brand colors and here's the whatever, like these are the types of the content that I'm posting. You have to lay that groundwork. And then, this is the admin, this is the marketing person, you're doing 15 different roles, and you'll never be able to let go of some of those and get help until you define what each of those roles are.
Right.
So that's
And
the
it's
first step.
yeah, that's the first step. And because we do make a lot of this stuff, because you do it so fast and it's easy for you, it's hard to watch somebody kind of trip up on what you normally do. And a good example of this is my podcast. So I've been doing the podcast, running the whole thing. I do all the editing, all the show notes, all the social media on it, find the guest. And, for a while, it was just something that I did. And then it just became like this huge like hassle. And now I have like literally 4 admins that work on that podcast. And that was just one of the things that I was doing.
Yeah.
And the podcast for me is not something I monetize. So it's like one of those things where I'm like, oh, but I'm going to pay them, but I'm not going to get money back directly. Like I'll get it indirectly because people hear the podcast, but it's more important that the podcast goes out every Thursday than, whatever I'm paying the admins to help me out so I can do other things.
Right. I mean, that you're right. Sometimes when we don't see immediate tied revenue to the job function that they're doing, but it's all indirect. Like the podcast is a huge marketing piece for you, right? So it's not, necessarily I get this much income per month so I can spend this much in expenses. It's your marketing. And so what you just described, and I know because I've done some YouTube videos myself. I don't have a podcast, but that editing piece, that integration piece, it is a huge time suck. I mean, huge. And so the question is, how expensive are you as the lead person, the visionary, and the person who's doing the main content? How expensive are you, and is that the best use of your time? Because it's actually costing you money for you to be doing that specific job, right? It's much cheaper to hire someone in, a VA or admin or whoever, whatever you want to call it, to do that specific piece.
Yeah, absolutely. And like any nurse, and so I've had this problem throughout my life in that, I could never have just one job. I had my primary full-time job, and then I would have like 3 or 4 part-time jobs in various hospitals. And then I would take on like some legal work, that some of my doctors gave me. And then I would take on something else and I never gave anything up. Like they just would pile on, and I'd have like 10 jobs at any given time. And I did the same thing in my business when I first started. I didn't even give up any of my nursing jobs. When I started the business, I was like, oh, I'll just do this
One
too.
more thing.
Yeah, yeah. Why not? I'm super nurse, right? Superwoman nurse. So, but then it's like stuff starts to suffer, and it depends on what it is that you're not focused on. That's going to suffer. Something is going to suffer immensely, and some of that, because I'm a single mom to top it all off, on top of my 10 jobs and starting a business. So does time with your kids suffer? Does time with, at your per diem job suffer? You're not doing your health stream. You're getting, pulled into the nurse manager's office. These kind of things start to happen.
Like, how they like give you the warning, you're behind, you're delayed, you've only got
You
3
didn't do your
days
health
to complete
stream.
this. You're the only one on our unit who hasn't completed.
Or we were looking for 100% on that satisfaction survey and you didn't respond. But yeah, so something's going to give. It's just a matter of what.
Yeah. And so, think of this, like we all know this, intuitively, that you can't do, 100 things well, like really well at the level of excellence that you actually want to execute, you can't, it's just physically impossible for anybody. I don't care how superwoman or superman you think you are or want to be, it's impossible. So again, it's, you know, there is a growth stage, but if in the beginning, if even if you are doing all those jobs, you need to really differentiate out those different roles and then be thinking about what are the easiest pieces that I could pull someone in and train, and here are the steps that they have to do. And it might be that, I mean, I'm not talking about hiring full-time employees, you know, right out of the gate. I'm talking about, you know, all the, you know, the social, creating the graphics for you. Well, that seems really fun, and is often used as a distraction for what you really should be doing to move the needle in your business. Like, oh, but I need to post these graphics, right? And we get sucked into the things that we kind of like and are easier to do, that don't push us maybe as much out of our comfort zone, is doing the hard things that absolutely nobody else can do. So it could be that, you know, hiring a part-time or a few hours a week at an incredibly low cost will free up big chunks of your time, so you can better dedicate and execute at a much higher level and actually move the needle in your business.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, that was one of the problems in the beginning that we had with VAs, is that one of so VA, virtual assistant, so somebody from, you know, abroad that's usually helping you at a very low cost, is finding a VA that works with your personality, your style, and can understand what it is that you want, and you have to really communicate with them. And so we would hire like 2 or 3 VAs at a time and see which one, give them 2 weeks and see which one was going to work out. And that was, you know, one way to do it, just who was the most motivated, enthusiastic, or, you know, who was most resourceful in getting stuff done. So that was helpful. But that can be expensive as well. And if you're worried about hiring somebody for like $8 an hour to start with, you know, paying 3 people at $8 an hour is not ideal, but it's something to think about to find the right person, because you don't want to invest a whole lot of time in the wrong person either. But
Yeah, but think about that. If it's $8 an hour, and say it's your podcast, or say it's you're doing content, you know, videos or teaching or whatever it is. Maybe you're doing a course and you need to do all the editing or transcribing and you know, getting it all uploaded. If that would take you a 5-hour chunk
yeah,
of your time, I mean, that's the majority of your day. Sometimes it would take you an entire day to only do that one thing. Is that worth paying somebody else $40 to do?
right. But it's also,
I mean,
it's not even it.
it's like
Yeah,
that's a
no,
no-brainer.
that's a big part of it, but it's also kind of that stress, you know, that stress
Yep.
of like, oh my God, I've got to get this done. This has to go out. And if it doesn't go out, you know, it's not like somebody doesn't call you on the phone and say, hey, you didn't put your podcast out, but you start to lose the trust of your audience. And
Yeah.
that's even worse, you know, and it's silent. Like they won't tell you. They'll just be like, oh, you know,
Yeah, she's fading.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But it's unprofessional. So if you want to be professional and separate yourself from the amateur entrepreneurs that are out there, you need to be consistent, and you show up whether there's somebody there or whether there's not somebody there.
Yep.
You know, I mean, if we didn't show up on this because, you know, maybe we show up on Wednesday at 9, or, you know, don't feel
Random.
like showing up
Like just
today.
random.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, people they wouldn't know when to watch. It would just be random who shows up. But 2, it's unprofessional.
Right.
So yeah, that's something to think about as well. So that consistency is a really, really important part of any platform that you want to start. And that's the other thing, Jill, that we talk to our students about, is like, you know, not starting a YouTube channel, podcast, Instagram, Facebook, and, you know, LinkedIn all at the same time and expect to be
Right.
really good at all. Like, just, you can certainly start all those pages,
Like just
but pick
pick
one.
something.
Pick
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Pick
Which,
one and build it out fully, right? Get a handle on it, you know, get some traction, get some content up there, be consistent. And so that you know, have your head wrapped around it and you really feel good about it before you add the next one. So then what
right,
would be the next, you know, highest likelihood place of where is that your audience hangs out? But, you
right.
know, that consistency is so critical
Yeah.
when you're starting out, when you're trying to build an audience.
Right. And to hand it off. So if you build up an Instagram account, so now you have what you like, you have a good sense of what you want to do, you can hand that off to somebody to replicate a lot of the stuff that you're doing. And maybe you give them some guidance once in a while. But once you've handed that off, then you can go on to the next thing and start building up another channel. But trying to build on all these channels is exhausting. And it's,
And you're going to make like tiny little increments or not in all of them versus picking one and making a big leap, making, a dent in that, getting some groundwork, getting some traction, and then you can, build out. The other interesting piece that I think is the struggle is not only to do that initial hire and of the VA or the admin. And I would think, we talk about like Fiverr or onlinejobs.ph or, especially at the holiday time right now, this is a perfect time to be thinking about your friends who have high school students, college students who are home. Like they can build graphics all day long. You could have a student, you could basically pay them X amount for a day to build you a month of graphics, and it would save you a ton of time and be really, reasonable, and you can give them some structure. But once you hire that, how do you let go of the control? Because it won't do you any good to build a team if you don't empower them to do the job.
Right. Absolutely. And, just I want to talk about that piece, but right before we move on from there, I do want to say that if you have kids at home, your business can pay your kids, which would be nice. Okay, if your kid's like 2, that's not going to go over
Probably
well with the IRS, but, you can certainly pay
We
your
have
kids to
college
do some of
students,
these. Well,
for
not even
sure.
college, even
Yeah.
even underage kids, like if they're 11, 12, and they can do some social media graphics, put them to work. You can pay them, and it's a tax write-off and all kinds of great stuff. Like definitely talk to your tax accountant, but it's a legitimate business expense to pay your kids to work in the business. So think about that too.
Yeah.
Um, and then what was that last thing that you just said?
I said about letting go of the control, right? Because if you keep your hand on it, and I think we've spoken about this before, you've really, had this a lot come up of you build this team, but you still are the one who has to keep saying yes, give the final answer. If you have to still give the final answer or approval, you haven't gained anything. Like you're
Right.
still, now you're going to have 14 people coming, to
Right.
you.
Well,
You
that's
have
what
to.
happened, because that's exactly what I have. I have 14 members on my team, and I'm doing 14 one-on-one calls, and I'm like, this is
Oh
not
no.
working out. Like this is, and then I'm still doing all this stuff, and I'm like, why? What is the problem? Like, so the problem is me, right? Like I'm the problem. So I just need to get some clear.
InnerGame, letting go of control.
um, yeah. So that. What I did was I made 2 of my admins managers, and broke up the teams, and now I have those 2 calls, and now I rely on them to have these conversations with the other admins, and it's working out, I think, pretty good, because they like having the manager position.
Yep.
I like not having 14 calls, and stuff is getting done, and I can just give them more of a I give free reign, like do it the way that you want to do it, that makes you happy, but it gets it done.
Yeah. Like if you set these parameters, and that's, the other thing too about, making sure that your communication is clear, having that essential job description or role or the parameters, the training manual, whatever it is that you write for each of those roles. Like here's the rule book. Like as long as you do this and you get the job done, like I'm fine with you, putting your spin on it, putting your, or not. If you're not, then here it is, and this is what you need to stick to. But most people don't want to be cogs in the wheel. They want to have enough structure to know when they're doing the right thing and when they have the authority to make the decision, or if they need to come to you, right? So having those conversations in the beginning. And then giving them a good parameter so that they know, oh, as long as I'm working within this, Katie's good with that, right? And then
As opposed to like with Instagram, I can't just say, oh, somebody take over my Instagram account, and and then when they don't do exactly what I was thinking, it's just kind of like, well, what were you thinking? It's just like, well, you didn't give us
you
any
didn't give me the
parameters.
guidelines.
Yeah,
Like
so
I'm
so
winging
that
it
was
over
really
here.
important. Yeah, so now I'm like, all right, look, these are the, the first couple of 9 grids that I have them do. I'm like, I do want to take a look at them and just, start. That's how you kind of start building the trust and say, oh yeah, I like this and this and this. Maybe next time with this. And I let some things go, like, if it's not exactly what I would have done, or
Right.
it's not, I don't think it's, but it's not going to harm my Instagram account. So,
Yeah.
just whatever, it's fine. Just send it out.
Yeah. Getting it done and making progress is better than, this illusion of perfection that it has to be done exactly in your way. And some things, maybe are more like that than others, but you really have to again, here's the inner game part, get inside of yourself and say, well, why am I so controlling about that? Right. It's, that you're, have this perfectionism, that you are afraid that it's going to totally flop, or you're afraid of the judgment if they put this out not exactly in the way that you would. Have those conversations, give them the structure and the parameter, and then realize that you need to let go of this piece so you can actually work on, the essential functions that are really driving your business and expanding it, your audience, your revenue, whatever it is.
Right. Yeah. And we've certainly had that. I've certainly had a couple posts that went out that I probably would not have approved. And, I don't want to say there was backlash, but, some people are like, oh, we can't click links in this. We can't do this, or blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. And it's not the end of the world. It happens.
Use
It's,
it as a learning opportunity,
yeah.
as
Yeah.
well. But I've screwed up too. Like, that's the other thing is like, okay, when you were doing all the things yourself, did you have any emails that went out with a bad link, or did you, like, probably, like, I get
Yeah.
it, but use those things as a learning experience with your team, but don't like come down so harsh on like, I can't believe you sent this out, with broken links or whatever. You're better off to use it, continue to give them, the authority to function in their role so that everybody can execute at a higher level. You will make much bigger leaps in progress in your business if you build it out that way, versus nope, I got to have my hand on everything, then you're going to be slow going for sure, and
Yeah.
have a frustrated team and yourself to boot.
Yeah, because that was like one learning lesson that I did have, because I did have one when I was just starting in websites. One web designer, she was doing websites and stuff, and she had sent me this one website that she had done, and I was looking at it, and I was like, I was, it was just one of those days where it's just like, I don't, and I went hard at it, and she quit. Like, she quit on the
Yeah.
spot basically, and I was just like, man,
Wow.
you're an ass. I'm like, man, I'm an asshole. Like, I really need to like tone it down just a bit, or take a breather before I go in, because that is people's, they put hard work into that,
Yeah.
and I don't like it, and I've certainly been on the other end of that, and it's enough to make you just quit. And
Yeah.
that's what happened. And I'm like, this can't happen again. I don't want this to happen again, because she was a good person. It wasn't that horrible of, I mean, she did a pretty bad design, but it was just, it
Well,
wasn't
like they did was terrible.
insurmountable. Like, it hadn't gone out. Like, we could make the changes, and,
Yeah.
and she had done other work that was good. So,
Yeah. So again, like coming at it from a space of always, what can we learn from this?
right.
Right. Like, even when they do really great stuff, give them that feedback too. Like, this is like that is on point. Like, that is, I couldn't have done a better job myself. Like, that's exactly what great design, great color scheme, whatever it is that they put together, give them that feedback too, because then they know like, oh, this, these things she really liked. And when I had something that, is like, not so much, point out that like, I'm not a fan of this, and this is why,
Right.
because it doesn't flow, because the message is disconnected, because they don't know where to buy, because your button's all the way at the bottom where it should be, throughout the entire page, or whatever it is, giving that feedback in a way that they can learn and grow and say, okay, let's try to make those revisions. And then, we'll take a look at it again, or whatever it is. But you have to, at some point, give them the parameters and the authority to do what it is they need to do.
So Jill, I would also say like with the Superman syndrome, it's not just like getting help in our business, but help also in our lives.
Yes.
Just to make it all happen. And that's one thing that I've learned recently is that, I started hiring people just to help me go shopping or help me,
Clean your house.
clean my house, help me to do all these things that I just like my house my toilets wouldn't be clean for like months if it were up to me. It's just not going to happen. Like you don't want to come over, but I do have
Yeah.
a house cleaner, so you can come over. But well, not with COVID. But anyway, but having people to help you out in other areas as well
Yeah.
that don't directly affect your business is important. And it doesn't always have to be paid strangers. Like having your kids help out, having family members help out, and just letting people help you.
Yeah. And now, again, giving permission to ask for help and realize that you literally cannot do it all. And many of us are balancing work, sometimes work, trying to start the new business and family, and meeting all those needs leaves you nothing. Like you are so empty and you're so frustrated and you're not making progress, and it's because you're trying to do it all. So whatever it is, if you've decided that you really want to focus on your business, carve out a chunk of time and commit to yourself, and then be integral and don't break your word to yourself that I'm going to work on the business during this time on Saturday morning, every Saturday from 8 to 12. And as a result, I'm going to have paid my kids $2 to fold all the laundry for the week, or I'm going to have somebody come in and clean, whatever it is. But that's part of growing your business.
Yeah.
Again, how expensive are you really in your role in the business? Is it less expensive for you to work on the business and stay focused and move it forward, getting clients, getting your services out there? Or is it less expensive for you to be cleaning toilets?
Right.
Like,
And I think that's one of the things that I had done, which was an exercise that was very helpful, was making out a list of things that I enjoyed doing, things that, I kind of don't mind doing, I don't like or dislike, and then the things that I absolutely hate. And I
yeah,
have to say cleaning is definitely on the top of that list. And
me too.
you don't have to be a millionaire to have a house cleaner, right? You don't have
No,
to be, you don't even have to make six figures to have a house cleaner. There's a lot of inexpensive house cleaners that who can just help you out and start putting those things, because what you really want to do in your business is focus on the things that are going to make you money.
right.
And while social media will get the message out, it's not always necessarily going to make you money. So like what are the key things that you can do and keep focused on those, and then little by little you can start outsourcing it's all
This
the
other
things
stuff.
on your list that you hate. Yeah, so
Mhm.
I would definitely make that list of things that you hate doing and price it out. And you might
Yeah.
actually be surprised at how affordable a lot of these things are.
Yeah. And think about like what it would feel like for you to have that off your list. Whether
Yeah.
it's, maybe if it is cleaning, it's not, you can't start out every week or even every other week. What if they just came and did like a deep clean every month, and then you just have your kids help out and hit the highlights, or you just hit the highlights, in that in between time. It still is a huge pressure off, off your shoulders. And then you don't feel so guilty focusing on your business, because that's actually what's going to, in down the road, and hopefully sooner, the more you progress and the more you can focus on it and get your services out there, you will be bringing in income for your family. So
Right.
sometimes you have to, again, you just can't do it all. You just can't. And recognizing what is the most cost effective way of getting rid of the things that you hate or you're not good at, and you can outsource those, like that just makes the most sense. Starting that really from a much earlier stage than I would say most people want to.
Right.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah. And I'm kind of pot calling the kettle black because, that's the route I took. I, insisted on doing everything myself, and it held me back. And it held me back for a good couple of years because I couldn't do it all, but even though I insisted, and yeah, I eventually got it all done, but it took so much longer than it needed to. Like it didn't need to take me, years and years to make this roll. It just, I could have done this in a year. And,
Yeah.
if I had been willing to let people help me.
Yeah. And so I think that's, the beauty of Nursepreneurs and this group and why we're doing the stream is, why we can speak to this is like, we're telling you from experience, like, you can take that road, but it's going to be a longer one. And this is what's going to happen. Or you can choose to learn from others who have been through it and said, oh man, like I would have changed this. I would have done this differently, so you can learn from those mentors and other people in the field. All
Yeah.
right, Katie, I think, do you have anything else before we wrap up?
No, just no, I can really resonate with that now because I could have saved a whole lot of money. That would have been so much better.
Yeah,
Where were
I
you
mean,
when I needed you, Jill?
I don't know. I was still getting my stuff out there too, because I was also thinking I had to do it all myself, right? So learn from us.
Yeah.
Learn from us, and start really taking a look at what roles you're doing and what can you outsource so that you can focus on those really revenue generating activities to move your business faster and further.
Awesome. All right, Jill. Well, I will see you here next week and all of you
Sounds
guys.
good. All right.
Bye.